Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Next Man Up podcast. If you haven't heard us before, I encourage you to go back and listen to some of our previous podcasts and learn a little bit more about us. Today, Austin cannot be with us, so I am Adam. I'm here with my pal Rich. Say hello.
Sup?
And we brought our next man up, Cole, back today. Popular demand bringing Cole back. So, Cole, say what's up.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me back. Glad to be here.
And I'd also like to recognize our fan of the week. We will be doing a fan of the week every once in a while going forward. Our fan of the week, it was a tough one, but we're going to go with actually Cole's mom, Mrs. Connington. Shout out to Cole's mom. She sent me a very nice text. She said she's really been following up on us going forward.
Yes.
So I'd like to give her a shout out. Thank you for listening, and I hope you continue, especially if we keep bringing Cole back on.
Oh my God, you should have. I think I got like 4 texts from her, all rapid fire. Like, just saw this, can't wait to listen. Like 10 minutes later, this is so hilarious. Like 30 minutes later, this is so much fun. And then like the one at the end was like, so happy you got to do this. It sounded great. I'm going to text Adam how good it was. She was thrilled.
Yeah, it was great. I loved seeing that. It was a good midweek pick me up, I guess, from her, seeing some encouraging stuff. So I guess with that, we'll move into the meat and potatoes of today's show. We will start today talking about the dunk contest. I was talking with Rich recently. He had some strong words on the dunk contest. So, Rich, what's your take on that?
So my take on the dunk contest that I wanted to get in last week, but with Austin and you not breathing when you guys talk, really couldn't chime in. So I will talk about the dunk contest this week. My take on the dunk contest is get rid of it. There's no reason for it. It is totally outdated. You don't even have big names in there anymore. It's just so uneventful. Like, to be perfectly honest, what dunk have we not seen yet? Unless you're going to be like jumping over cars and bringing in props,
which that's happened. Blake Griffin jumped over the car maybe like 2010 or something. That was probably like 10 years ago now.
Yeah, like the last memorable kind of dunk contest that at least I remember was with Dwight Howard, and one of the things, it was kind of like more of a prop, like he wore like a Superman cape and stuff. But like since then, it's just been very dry. It's been very just uneventful. Like, they could easily do something else with that, because again, what more can somebody do that we have not seen already? Like, how do you just like judge that?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think you have some valid points, Rich. I think it's still kind of fun for some fans, especially maybe even younger fans or older fans, that either can reminisce about some of the old dunk contests, or the young fans that are just amazed by the dunking in general. But I think a lot of people that have watched basketball for a long time can really look at that and say, yeah, this has been done before. This isn't new. And I feel like in general, it's been a lot easier to get 9s and 10s in the last couple of years. In general, I didn't really see much at all this year that was a 9 or 10 worthy. And I saw a bunch of 9 or 10s popping up this year. So, I mean, go back and watch some of those old ones like Michael Jordan, or even, maybe even Blake Griffin jumping over the car. Some of those were 10s. And this year, I didn't see anything that was near that caliber. Yeah, Anthony Simmons ends up winning it. And I think if you put him on the roster with some of the people that have won it in the past, even a guy like Zach LaVine, who won it not that long ago, I don't even think he makes it past the first round. So I thought I was pretty underwhelmed by it this year. I didn't see a whole lot new. That Nerf hoop thing was kind of new, but we've seen similar things to it. I was a little underimpressed by it. Did you guys watch it at all?
I watched like the last 2. Like, I think I watched after they got rid of the first guy, so it was just Anthony versus the other person. And so I turned it on because So I turned it on because like we talked about it last week, and that's literally the only reason I turned it on, is because like I remembered. If it wasn't for doing the podcast last week, I wouldn't have watched it. But I was like, oh, maybe it is interesting. But yeah, I agree. Like I was seeing nines, and I mean, these are things I will never be able to do. I can't dunk with a ladder. So like
Sure.
the athleticism by itself is astounding. But I agree that like compared to past years and stuff that I have seen, like the scoring this year was a little like elevated. Like the nines and tens I don't think did matter. So I agree with Rich. I do think it's something that maybe is just something that needs to be taken out, but I think they need to figure out something else to do in the halftime, because it is like a fun little separation
Game.
of the two halves. Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
So it is. I would like to see something put into that. I don't know what, but there's there's smarter people out there to figure that out. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, the guy that ends up winning at Anthony Simons, he almost kisses the rim at one point, and so you got to admire his elevation getting up that high. But like,
right.
Yeah, again, if he would have actually made contact, mouth on rim, that might qualify for a 9. But I mean, people were throwing 10s at him and he even make the contact. I'm like,
Right.
there's guys that can jump higher than that around the league, and I don't think he would have won if the competition was elevated at all. I know. It's hard for me to disagree that it should be taken out completely. It's just such kind of like a historic event. So I'm wondering if they can't replace it, can they at least elevate it a little bit? Or, like maybe people just need to get more creative. I don't know what they could do that hasn't been done, but I would like to see something a little bit new happen in that, I guess.
What if they take like 3 random fans, like nominate them, they get already voted in, and then they go home for a week, prepare, get a trampoline, get like their own little prop, and then we have like 3 random people do it. So we still get like the like somewhat of an athletic thing, but we also see some like crazier stunts that these $1 million athletes aren't risking an injury.
Sure.
That
Right.
random Larry over there is like totally fine with possibly breaking an ankle, doing a backflip off a trampoline or something to dunk. Like maybe you do something like that and then get the fans more involved or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd probably watch that. Rich, would that
I
get you?
was thinking along the same route, but instead of fans, because again, NBA is still a business. That's a lot of liability. All it takes is one fan breaking a leg for them to like, get screwed with lawsuits and
They can
everything
sign
else
a
like
waiver.
that.
You can sign a waiver.
You can.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that would put that risk out there, but sorry,
Yeah.
continue, Rich.
I was thinking the same thing, but instead do like celebrities, because they always have like celebrities for the All-Star
Okay,
game.
yeah.
Imagine having the celebrities doing the dunk contest, but also because most celebrities aren't like, freaking 6'6", 7 foot tall, you might have to lower the rim for like a celebrity.
Put
like
it at
in
like
general,
9 feet or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
put it at 9 feet or 8 feet and see what like a celebrity could do as a dunk, but also leave the normal rim height like still there so you can actually see the difference of like how much different a foot is, because I feel a lot of fans don't really understand that concept on how much like lower or higher an actual foot is.
Right. Thinking back to my college days, I used to be able to dunk on the 10s, but I don't even know if I can hit a 9 at this point. And so that'd be fun to watch celebrities try to go out there, even put it at 9 or 8 feet. But there would be guys, like Snoop Dogg that could probably dunk on a 10-footer. That guy, even at his age now, is pretty athletic. So maybe they could do a thing where they can they could put the rim at whatever height they want and go at it, They'd have
waiting on the score or something.
Kevin Hart might come out and be at like a 4-footer or 6-footer or something. And then, Snoop Dogg might just not have to lower it at all. Obviously, they do something similar with the Celebrity All-Star game that they do most years. They didn't do this year, probably because of COVID. But that might be entertaining to watch. Definitely.
Yeah,
so,
actually, I like that celebrity idea a lot more than the random fan. So yeah.
So would you like to see the celebrities also shoot in the 3-point contest, Rich? Would that be part of their
I would enjoy that, because I'd love to see Adam Levine actually do well in the 3-point contest from our last segment. So, man, That'd be a great 3-point contest right there.
Yeah, you had just been calling it like 4 years early of like, see, told you he was going to come in and take
Yeah,
it.
right.
So, yeah, I think it'd be funny to watch a 3-point contest because again, that's one of those things that unless you play basketball and step onto a court, you don't realize how far that like 3-pointer is from the basket. Like it's I'm an avid basketball player whenever I can to get out and play. But there's people that don't play as much and they step on the court and they can't even come close to getting getting it from the 3-point range. So it would be interesting to watch, athlete or a celebrity that's not an athlete come out and be like, wait, that's how far it is on the TV. It looks so so easy. But yeah, that might be funny to watch.
Yeah, I completely agree. It would be at least like maybe have the winner of I think the 3-point happens before the dunk contest, so it's hard to do that, but like have the winner of the dunk contest then be in the 3-point contest or
Sure.
something. But
yeah, that'd be funny.
just to get that one celebrity. So speaking of 3-point contest, Steph won. So did any of you guys pick that? I don't
Woo!
remember.
Steph Curry won again.
I think
Weird.
everyone was against picking Steph just because it was just kind of the easy call there. But yeah, I saw that. He almost looked like he wasn't trying at times. He just like went out and was just shooting. And yeah, obviously he impressed everyone. But yeah, I mean, I thought when he started there in the second round, he started slow in the second round, and I thought there was a chance that he wouldn't win. I believe it was Mike Connolly kind of came out of nowhere. Which is interesting, Cole, because you picked Devin Booker as your pick, and Devin Booker was not able to participate. So I think it was Mike Connolly that took his spot.
Interesting.
And I was looking at it saying, oh my God, he almost won it. He kind of impressed me. Obviously, Steph went out and did his thing. And Jason Tatum actually shot really well. I mean, I guess a couple of us, I think, were thinking about going Tatum. I think we went with his teammate, and he did not shoot well. So that was not a good pick. But, yeah, Zach LaVine did okay. I think he definitely got off to a slow start. I think if he would have made it into that next round, he probably would have turned some heads in the next round. But he definitely got off to a slow start. So, did you guys watch the 3-point contest at all?
I just watched highlights of everything, so that's all I know. And the highlights they showed of Zach LaVine, it did not look very good of what they showed.
Yeah, he definitely got off to a slow start, but I think like down the stretch and the end there, I think he hit like 8 of his last 10. So he didn't perform well in the beginning, and he started with his money rack. That's the rack of balls that's worth double. He opted to start with it because right now the NBA is letting you put it any position, and it didn't fare well for him to start with it because he started off not as well. I think he would have done a lot better and probably would have had a chance to move on to that next round if he had his money rack at the end instead of the very beginning. So that's an interesting thing that they're allowing the players to do is say, when they want to shoot the balls that are worth more, I guess. But
you can never start like cold like that. I don't know why you would want your money rack.
That's how I would feel.
Start you gotta get into like a groove. Like that's a weird choice right there.
Everyone definitely seemed to question that a little bit, and they're like, well, if he starts off well, like that'll give him a lot of confidence going forward. But I'm like, yeah, I didn't like the move, and obviously didn't end up working out for him. So maybe he'll get there again in the future. Obviously, if he shoots really nice again from 3 next year, maybe they'll put him back in there, and maybe he'll make some different choices. But he did okay, but I'm kind of disappointed he didn't win it. Now, when you look over to the All-Star game itself, he didn't get a whole lot of playing time, but when he was out there, he turned a couple heads. He had a couple threes, couple dunks, but it was, again, just pretty much a shoot-off with Steph Curry and Damian Lillard. nobody could guard Antetokounmpo and Giannis down there. So it was just like a non-defense, nobody really playing type of experience. So if you guys are arguing there should be no dunk contest, I would almost argue the All-Star game in general pro basketball should just be eliminated. That was just like I'm going to walk down the court and just shoot a three. I'm going to shoot from half. So it wasn't all that fun to watch. Yeah.
Yeah.
No one plays defense for All-Star because no one wants to get hurt in the middle of the season by going like super hard. So it's normally just like it's just a show of just like, all right, we're gonna dunk, let's train some threes, let's randomly maybe play a little bit of like hard defense, maybe bump a guy here or there. But really it's just like an athletic off pretty much.
Yeah. The last quarter I guess the last quarter they do it weird in the NBA. I guess now with the All-Star game was like the scoring restarts at the end of each quarter. But that last quarter, you could see that they almost kind of stepped up playing defense, and that might just be kind of the competitive nature of the players coming out. But yeah, the rest of the game, it was just like, let me step aside and let you dunk on an empty hoop and stuff like that. And I was just like, okay, I would hope that if you're in the NBA, you can dunk when nobody's guarding you. I'd hope, that you could, if you're Steph Curry or Damian Lillard, you would be able to go 1 from 3 from almost half court with nobody guarding you. And it's like, I mean, sure, it shows off their skills a little bit, and sure, they're just having fun because, they deserve to be there. But it wasn't, as a fan, all that fun to watch when, for me, I'm kind of a defensive guy. I like to see good defense. So I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, anyone should have been able to score from that point. Like I could have, if you don't play defense on me, I can walk down the lane and shoot a layup, So that was not the funnest game, I guess, to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I will say, like, yeah, I watched the first quarter and I kind of got bored with it. Just again, I'm not a basketball fan, but they looked like they were having a lot of fun. Like the players were having fun, and it was kind of fun just seeing some alley oops from like people that don't play together and stuff like that. So I agree that like for the casual fan, I was done after like 5 minutes, but I could see how some people that live and breathe basketball, they it's still entertaining enough where they still get excited to watch it. It's like how I am with the Pro Bowl for football, I'm not expecting a game or anything, but it's fun because these are players that I've watched the whole season play. So it is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, it has its merit in a way, but in a way it's also just kind of boring sometimes. And yeah, it was fun to watch like a guy like Chris Paul get alley-ooped when he's so often the person like throwing it up to other people. So it was interesting seeing him, on the receiving end of that, and Steph Curry laying home dunks and stuff. But again, like you're in the NBA, man, I would hope that you could do stuff like that when nobody's actually guarding you. So I would say, kicking it over to another sport, in hockey, again, yeah, a lot of players are trying not to get hurt because it's kind of a mid-season thing. But I would say in hockey, you see a little bit more competition in an all-star game than you do in the NBA. And so that's a little bit more interesting to watch. Have you guys watched the NHL all-star game at all?
No.
I'm right there with you, Rich.
Me.
That's not something I normally watch
Did not watch that at all. Did that like already happen?
No, I don't even know if they're doing it this year because they're kind of already on a shortened schedule. It's a very strange year for the NHL. But talking about a guy that's always in that all-star game is Patrick Kane. And I've been hearing a lot of trade rumors swirling around about Patrick Kane because he's having one hell of a season for a team in the Blackhawks that was not expected to do very well this year. What do you guys think? I know, Cole, we've watched Hawks together. Rich, I know when we were living together, we used to watch the Blackhawks a lot more than you do now. A guy that we've seen a lot of and has won us a lot of championships, a guy like Patrick Kane. What do you think about moving on from a guy like that?
I mean, you go, Rich. Sorry.
Okay, no, it's okay. I would say like if he's like playing really well right now, like the whole point with like, I feel like any sport, it kind of sucks when you're like right kind of there, or like you're good enough just to make playoffs, but not to make that deep run. Because now, as a franchise, you're just in that awkward position of like, well, we got a lot of guys that are getting older. They're playing well enough to get us to the playoffs, but then we need new pieces. We need to get younger. We got to do something
Sure.
else. And it's hard to do other things because when you make the playoffs, your draft pick, things like that, you're not getting a very good guy. So, I mean, for the Hawks, like, yeah, it would suck to see Patrick Kane leave because he has done so much for the Blackhawks. But at the same time, every sport is still a business, and the business is winning. I'd rather, if he's playing really well this season, trade him now while he's at the peak of his value instead of holding out another year or two and then getting something for less if we really don't have a chance at getting to the Stanley Cup.
Okay. Interesting. Cole, what do you think about that?
I mean, I totally understand where, Rich is coming from, but in like just how I feel about it, I mean, like, I feel like Patrick Kane has to start and retire as a Hawk. I feel like seeing him play for a different team is like not blasphemy, but just like it would be so hard to like see, and I would just hate as a fan, just I would hate seeing that. But I do agree that it is a league and you do have to win, and it sucks that he is playing still so effectively and so just being still so good at the sport, and we don't have enough around him where we are making that playoff run or that Stanley Cup. Like, we're not looking really at that point. We're looking at getting into the playoffs, not whether we can get to the cup or not. So I feel bad for him in that sense that, yeah, like we do have, he's still playing like just amazing hockey, and we don't have anything or enough, not anything, but we don't have enough around him to really get us over that hump. So I don't want to see it, but I wouldn't be surprised, yeah, if like they do exactly what Rich just said and like trade him for a draft or something and try to improve the team in the future. So
Sure.
But yeah.
And there's one thing about the Hawks. The Hawks draft well. Obviously, we've drafted Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews, Kirby Dach seems like he's doing pretty well. Alex DeBrincat, even going back to Teuvo Teravainen, did fairly well. Artemi Panarin did well off the draft. Kubalik is looking pretty good. I think a second-round pick, a little bit of an older guy when we picked him at the time. So the Hawks draft well. So I get that, trying to build through the draft. But if you look at what they're able to do this year, I think Patrick Kane is second in the league in total points this year, and they're winning a lot of games, some games that people are not expecting them to win, coming off of a bad loss the other night. But up until that point, they were actually looking really good. They're in the playoff picture. And I know people aren't expecting them to contend for a cup, but you got to remember right now, they're doing all this work with essentially just Patrick Kane. Jonathan Toews is not anywhere to be seen right now. And we also have Kirby Dach has not been on the ice, and he's been impressive when he's been out there. Alex DeBrincat's missed a lot of time. So in my opinion, the Hawks have far exceeded what they were supposed to do this year. And you talk about a team that was aging. I mean, I don't know if that's the case anymore for the Hawks. Sure, Patrick Kane's getting older, and then Jonathan Toews and Duncan Keith. But outside of those guys, you're looking at one of the youngest rosters in the league now. So if Patrick Kane can bring you to the playoffs and get some of these younger guys some playoff experience, I don't know if I'd move on from a guy like that right now when he could give kind of the younger guys some advice and teach them some things and maybe bring them to the playoffs a couple of times. And then hopefully we can get somebody else to the draft. Obviously, it'd be great to get another guy like Patrick Kane that could win us multiple cups. But in my opinion, I don't think it is time to move on from a guy like that. I would love to see him retire as a Hawk, and I think I would love to see that, I guess. But
I mean, I would love to see Patrick Kane retire as a Hawk as well. But just the way sports has gone, it's
Mhm.
easy for Patrick Kane to like come back to Chicago, retire as a Blackhawk,
Sure.
which is normally what happens with like, the great players for a team. They will
Sure.
kind of come back for
Mhm.
that. But the
Mhm.
other thing though too is the salary cap for the NHL. Like, how does that affect everything too? Because
Sure.
every major sport lost a ton of money last year because
Yeah.
they either had to cut season short, no fans, like they
Mhm.
lost a ton of money. So like moving Patrick Kane, it might not be like so good for the team, just like you're saying, Adam, where it's like he is bringing a lot going to the playoffs. We apparently do have a lot younger team than what I thought, which is actually very good. With that, so it could be more of if Patrick Kane doesn't want to like restructure his contract and is kind of being a stickler, like I'm not doing that,
Mhm.
then they might have to trade him because
Sure.
he is getting paid so much money.
Yeah, and that's basically the case for the Hawks is they've been kind of in a financial, not a good financial place, I guess I would say, for the last several years with having to pay, I think, about three guys about one third of the money in Keith, Kane, and Tays. So that's put them in kind of a hard place, and we've had to move on from a lot of those young, talented players like a Teuvo Teravainen and Artemi Panarin and stuff like that. And you would hate to see, a guy like Alex DeBrincat, who has a lot of potential, be kind of that case as well because we don't have enough money to pay other players. So I understand that too, Rich. And I don't know what type of financial situation the cap will be for the NHL next year. We could very well see it go down and put the Hawks in a harder place. But we also don't know what's really happening with Jonathan Toews. Is he going to retire out of the blue because we don't know where he is? So that would also be a way to obviously clear up a lot of space. But I guess time will tell. I personally just think it's not worth getting rid of a guy like Patrick Kane at this point in time, especially when he could get us into the playoffs and possibly win a series or two in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. There's a lot of other things when it comes to like your star players too, as well, than just their performance like on the field. Like there's that leadership,
Sure. Yeah,
the work
definitely.
ethic, showing the younger players like what it actually takes to play at that level consistently all the time
Hmm.
and things like that. So I mean, again, I don't know if they really can't make it to the Stanley Cup again. Like, yeah, you made a deep run, but how does that really help the team moving forward if you're going to start declining or dropping off like 2 years later or like 3 years later, kind of thing, too? So, I don't know.
Sure.
So, it's a
Yeah.
weird predicament for like a lot of teams. That's why uh, GMs and stuff are there.
Yeah, definitely, and probably hard decisions on a lot of people's ends. It's interesting you bring up the cap because we do now know that the cap for the NFL this year, which a lot of people were speculating was going to drop for the first time in league history, we do now know that it did drop 8%, which is quite a large drop, especially judging on the fact that it typically raises 5 to 10 million per year, and now the teams are looking at that going down. What do you think that means for the league, Rich?
Well, as of right now, we've already seen ramifications from that with Kansas City and the Chiefs already cutting their top two tackles because
Hmm.
they just went on a
Mhm.
spending spree on contracts for certain people this last off season. And
Right.
again, the weirdest thing with the NFL is when they do make these contracts all the time, they always tend to kind of front load them. And with the cap constantly going up, they anticipate it to continue that way. So now with it not continuing that way, you're going to see a lot of restructured contracts of just not getting paid a lot this year and just like pushing back a lot of people's money into those later years to make room for the cap itself. Like Kansas City was the first team to really pull the trigger on some like big name guys, important pieces. You're going to start seeing a domino effect of that within the next like week or so, because somebody like the Saints, they're already cap screwed. So
Well, I think the Saints are the other team, if you're bringing them up, that have already made a fair amount of cuts. I think they had cut Janoris Jenkins, who's a Pro Bowler, and they cut Emmanuel Sanders already, who you could argue is a good player, but has probably underperformed the last couple of years. So yeah, the Saints are definitely a good team to bring up because they're making cuts already as well.
Yeah, it's just like it's the cap situation's like crazy because you got some teams that are doing so well with the cap, and then there's like a handful of teams that are like strapped in the cap. Like even the Bears, like I just read an article today where the Bears are technically like negative like 2 million at this point, and I don't even think that included the franchise tag for Allen Robinson too. So now you got to tag on Allen Robinson's deal, which is going to put them even more in the negative. So now the Bears have to start like restructuring or cutting people, which I believe one of the people to cut is definitely Jimmy Graham. I did not like what I saw on game days with Jimmy Graham, minus his like 8 touchdowns that he's had. Like, oh, cool. So he tried for touchdowns, but when he was not near the end zone, the guy was like walking, not bodying people out, just lagging out there, just like no effort whatsoever unless he was in the red zone. It was pathetic.
Yeah, I did not see a lot of effort out of Jimmy Graham until we got in the red zone. I would definitely agree with that, Rich, that he's a possible cut candidate because I think we're set to pay him about $8 million or more that we could take off the books. Or a guy that might just take a pay cut if he seems to for some reason like being here, even though the offense very much underperformed. So he would possibly be a guy that would stay for less money. But I don't know if he's not really going to try very hard. I don't know why they would want to keep him. And it was clear there was plays that he took off last year. I believe the Bears have already come out and said we're also cutting Bobby Massey. I think that's a great move. I think he's underperformed at the right tackle position for several seasons. I've been wanting to see an upgrade there for many years. I was hoping even in the draft 2-3 years ago that the Bears would select Mike McGlinchey, who ended up going to the 49ers and has been a good piece there. And then I believe the Bears also cut the corner Buster Screen, which another great move, I think, because another guy that's very much underperformed. He ended up going out with injury last year, and the defense looked much better without him. He was kind of the nickel corner or the slot corner, and it seemed like anytime he was on the field, that's where the quarterback was going with the ball, and it was usually a reception, and he got some penalties. And like I said, then he ends up getting hurt, and the defense does much better without him. So I think so far I've liked the cuts that the Bears have made. The only couple players that I've seen assign, no huge names there. I think we've extended Ryan Knoll another couple of years, who barely makes it off the bench. And today the Bears actually signed Cairo Santo to a 3-year deal. I think that's a good move because he kind of impressed. He impressed a lot of people last year. I believe at one point in time, and I don't know if it was when he ended the season, was the most accurate kicker in the league at one point last year. So, and obviously that's a place the Bears have struggled the last few years. So I liked seeing that. And obviously the biggest news is they franchise tagged Allen Robinson. What do you think about that?
That is definitely a 100% tag, and I feel like trade, especially with the cap, the way that it is. You keep hearing the Bears and quarterbacks. Bears are desperate. They're going to give like the market for a Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson, but realistically, with the cap the way that it is right now, getting either one of those guys, they would also have to agree on restructuring their contract to come
Hmm.
to the Bears, on top of giving up probably at least one or two players, or if it's not even players, you're going to give up like a ton of draft capital, which
Sure.
if it is the first round picks, totally okay with, because Ryan Pace on his first round picks has only hit on one out of the four other picks that he's chosen. So
Right. Yeah.
losing a first round pick, I feel, for the Bears isn't that bad of a deal, because we apparently can never get that pick right, even when
Yeah.
it wasn't Ryan Pace.
Right. Yeah. I don't remember the last time the Bears, I mean, outside of possibly Roquan, who looks pretty promising, I don't remember many times I've been looking at the Bears' first round pick and I was like, wow, they really hit a star player there. Obviously, looking at, we didn't have a couple first round picks because of the Khalil Mack trade, but looking
Hmm.
at these last couple that Ryan Pace made, that you have Roquan, you have Mitch, you have Leonard Floyd and Kevin White, which Leonard Floyd showed some promise, but then underperformed a fair amount. Kevin White couldn't play more than a couple games a season without going out with injuries. He was essentially Samuel Jackson, the glass man out there, and every time he stepped on the field, he broke some bone. Uh, and obviously, Mitch showed a lot of potential, and then really fell flat for most people. So yeah, I would agree with you. If the price is first round picks, give them away because we don't need them.
Yeah,
But if
and that, sorry to interject, you make a great point too with like Khalil Mack. Like no one would say that was a bad trade, like giving up all these first round picks for him, just because
right,
you have a player who can actively perform, you know he can perform,
right.
versus someone who you don't know about. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I would rather. I mean, even if the price tag, which it might even be higher than this, but for a guy like Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson, even if it's 3 first round picks, 4 first round picks, give them away because for the Bears, I'm looking at this going, we hit what 1 out of 5 with Ryan Pace, so we give away 4. That's maybe one good player in there for us, and we know we're getting a good player. So it's a higher reward, lower risk type of situation, um, which I kind of like. I hate taking all those risks for players that don't usually work out for us for first round guys.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. The other issue too is with trading for, like I said, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, is that like cap space. So again, with the Bears looking for a quarterback as well and trying to stay underneath the cap, I feel like as much as I want like Russell Wilson or Watson, I want Watson over Russell for sure. But if we're clearly just speaking about cap space and trying to keep kind of the team together
Hmm.
and just getting the quarterback, I feel like Sam Darnold would be a good choice of giving, again,
Sure.
overspend for him, give that first round pick because we normally F that up anyways, and then maybe like a third round pick or fourth round just to kind of sweeten it up for Sam Darnold because he's
Hmm.
still on that rookie contract. So
Yeah.
like we won't be spending any money on that.
Very
And
affordable.
yeah, very affordable. And we could just probably get him just off pick capital rather than like, Houston or Seahawks. Like, yeah, we're going to need a player on top
Right.
of any pick you're going to do. Because if we're getting rid of like our main guy, they're going to want to compensate on offense or defense or whatever they're trying to
Yeah.
do anyways.
You know what I said to that, Rich? Give him Nick Foles. The whole world thought Nick Foles was like,
Yeah.
the
Greatest
best.
quarterback ever.
Yeah, godsend, Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles. Honest to God, probably one of the most underwhelming quarterbacks I've ever watched play football in my 25 plus years of watching football religiously. Like very unpopular thing here, but I would much rather watch Mitch Trubisky play 10 more years than watch Nick Foles step onto the field one more snap. I mean, like, he was extremely underwhelming. I did not, and it was interesting. Everyone was like, "Oh, we just need to give him more time to get the ball down the field." Like, it didn't matter if he had 1 minute to throw the ball, 10 seconds, that he could not complete passes accurate. He couldn't move. I saw Tom Brady and Matt Ryan be more mobile in the pocket than this guy. I did not like the signing in the first place. I don't like that he's even still on the roster. I know cutting him, we would waste a lot of money. So please, whoever we trade, whatever quarterback, give him Nick Foles.
Just take him.
Just
take him.
They're like, oh, you already got, enough. And they're like, oh, you're sure you don't want us to sweeten the deal with a Nick Foles? And they're like, no, we really don't want that.
Super Bowl MVP, man. He's worth something.
And we're way overpaying him to be a backup. And I really hope he's not the starter. I think out of all my years of watching Bears football, the hardest thing for me to do would be to go watch this next season and see Nick Foles out there as a starter. So I really hope that's not the case. I would much rather I would much rather have even like a Bridgewater, or like you bring up Sam Darnold. I would love to see Sam Darnold. And that's a very interesting name on our list, because if you look at a guy like Allen Robinson, who did get tagged, and you're thinking possibly a good tag and trade candidate, I've been hearing a lot of stuff that he's been saying good things about the Jets.
The Jets, he has.
And he's like some of their Instagram stuff. He's talked about, their cap space, their willingness to pay players, whatever it may be. That could be a possible trade destination for Allen Robinson, a sign and trade. Do you think it would be interesting if we sign, or if we, have Allen Robinson on the franchise tag, we trade him to the Jets for Sam Darnold? Would you do that move straight up?
I would love to see that straight up for sure, because then that, again, saves tons of room for cap. We get a quarterback. The other thing that people keep forgetting with like Sam Darnold too is he is literally 23 years old. He is still super young. He still has some type of promise. The Jets were just so dysfunctional with Adam Gase, which was also one of the worst signings and hirings for a head coach in a while, because he did nothing in Miami to prove that he could actually be a head coach. That was a total Jet move to begin with. So again, I feel like Sam Darnold, just like everyone's like, oh, well, he hasn't panned out. He hasn't done this. It's like, yeah, look at the dysfunction that he had to go through with the Jets. And again, it's also COVID. He's also a young guy. Like, he got, mono that one year. He's just hasn't been out on the field. But I feel if you give him, like, if we get him for the Bears, like, our offensive line is halfway decent. We got a couple pieces, I feel, to, like, actually do something with him, because he shows way more promise as, like, a quarterback. And it's like, again, with the cap, it's just, that just makes more sense to me, which I could see the Bears doing that, because Ryan Pace does too. Even with like Mitch Trubisky, like, you did not hear anything from the Bears about like Mitch Trubisky at all until it happened. So I can see kind of the same thing happening with the Bears right now, just leaking stuff out, talking about Russell Wilson and Watson, and then just the Bears like, oh, here we go. Here's Allen Robinson for Sam Darnold. And then maybe there's some type of pick kind of swap or something as well, kind of thing going on. But I think that would be the best move for the Bears, unless we get like Deshaun Watson for like 4 first-round picks and that's it. Like, we don't have to give up a player, and it's just 4 first-round picks, maybe some like 5th-round pick or something. Like, totally okay with that. But like, trying to give away a Khalil Mack on top of a couple first-round picks for Watson or Russell Wilson, it's like, now you're destroying the defense just to get one guy. Like, now there's going to be more pressure on that quarterback because now the defense took a huge hit.
Sure. And obviously a lot of the Bears offseason is going to revolve around a quarterback because that's kind of the biggest need right now, and that's the biggest story. But there's a lot of options right now at quarterback for the Bears. So obviously that's kind of the basis of this talk of where people will go is what do the Bears want to do at the quarterback? And like you kind of alluded to, Rich, they are very tight-lipped when it comes to their plans. A lot of people did not see the Khalil Mack thing going down. A lot of people did not know that the Bears were going to trade up to grab Mitch Trubisky. So I think that's one thing Ryan Pace does well as a GM, but it's very frustrating as a fan because we don't know. And it's almost like the stories that you hear are less and less likely to happen because knowing Ryan Pace, he's going to come out of left field with something. So I thought it was very interesting that early on, people were saying, oh, possible, Darnold to the Bears, that's possible because they're likely going to draft a quarterback. And the Jets come out and go, no, Darnold's our guy. We're sticking with him. We're not going to draft a quarterback. And then, like, what was it? A week later, all of a sudden they come out and say, maybe he's not our guy. And it seemed like that point when they came out and said, maybe we will draft a quarterback, all the talk about him going to the Bears, like, ended. And I'm like, now seems more likely than ever that a trade might happen for Darnold. And now nobody's talking about it. So I found that very interesting, I guess.
Yeah, I totally agree. It is just, again, this is the great thing about the NFL in the off season.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all the other major sports, the NFL somehow does a good job of like staying within the media. People are constantly talking about the NFL
Right.
throughout the entire year. Like
Right.
every week or two, something like
Breaking news.
Breaking news, something ridiculous. Same thing like, like this week, Dak Prescott gets a big, huge deal from Dallas.
Yeah.
Like, again, it sucks for Dallas. They had to pay that money, but that's the market value of the starting quarterback. Like, what else are they going to do?
In a tight cap area, it's interesting that a team like Dallas now, I believe going into next year, they're paying their quarterback the most amount of money for next season. They're paying the highest paid wide receiver for next season in Amari Cooper, and they have the highest paid running back on their roster in Zeke. And I think that's interesting. I saw a meme today. It's like Dallas has the 3 highest paid position players on their team just to go, 9-6 or 9-7 and lose in the first round of the playoffs next year. So that's just a typical Dallas thing to do. Let's pay a bunch of people a bunch of money and then, not do anything with that talent that's on the roster. Cole, what do you think about a guy like Sam Darnold going to the Bears as a Packers fan?
Oh, as you guys were talking about it, I just like Rich, you were touching on, how the Jets just have not been helpful to Sam Darnold at all, and like the management and the coaching and stuff like that. And I'm not at all trying to compare Nagy to Gase because obviously there's just a very different resume that puts Nagy at top. But like, I don't know. I'm as a Packers fan, like the Bears quarterback is just a position that I'm never worried about. And I'm like, I just wonder if that's a management or a coaching thing. So I wonder if like, you see Sam Darnold in a situation where he doesn't have the best management around him and he doesn't play that well. Granted, yes, the offensive line will be much better than what the Jets had. And I do
Hopefully.
think, yeah. And I do think the coach in general is like, I do think Sam Darnold will go into a much better situation. I do agree with that. But how much better and how much that elevates him, I'm not sure. But again, like if you can't get Russell or Deshaun or you don't like their expensive or anything, I mean, I think Sam Darnold is the next choice. I don't think like, any of the quarterbacks in the draft that like they could possibly get would be a huge improvement over Darnold. So I do think that's the best choice for the Bears at this moment. But do I think it's going to elevate you guys to a Super Bowl contender? I'm not that confident in it, but I could be wrong. So I think if Sam Darnold was on the Bears for the last 3 years and Mitch Trubisky was on the Jets, I think the stats would be the exact same. I think they would be very similar in their offensive play.
Sure.
Maybe Darnold a little bit better than Mitch with the Bears, but I don't think it would be a huge change. And I haven't paid much attention to the Jets because I've just seen how I just have not want to watch any Jets football. So I don't know how much of it is on Darnold compared to the offense and the coaching and stuff these last couple of years, but it's not like, but again, I do think it is the best situation for you guys right now, barring getting rid of like 7 picks and like maybe a good player for a Deshaun Watson.
So I would say the rumors that have been swirling around, so there's a bunch going around. The ones that the Bears I think would be most interested in, or at least fans are most interested in hearing, are you got the big names Watson and Wilson, but then you got other possibilities, I guess, that I don't know how I feel about them, but you got Alex Smith, who's going to get cut by Washington, and he's played in a similar system. He's played with Nagy, so people have argued that makes a lot of sense. And then you have Marcus Mariota, who looked early on like he was going to get traded and to get his numbers off the books for the Raiders, who are over cap. But now it looks like he might just get straight out cut. So he's a guy that they can get for cheap. And then obviously we talked about Darnold. Out of those guys, who would you most like to see come to the Bears as a Packers fan, and who would you least like to come to the Bears?
Well, I would, barring Wilson and Watson as the two I would not want to see for obvious reasons.
Sure.
I think, again, this is more so obviously as a Packers fan, I want the quarterback that has the least amount of skill and has no talent whatsoever or anything. And so maybe I would go with Mariota just because I agree. I feel like he hasn't played recently or enough to like really, that edge that I think the Bears need. But I could definitely see Alex Smith maybe being that middleman until you guys get another quarterback for a season or two. And then maybe, you draft someone this year or next year or trade for someone else and have him be like, a little set piece to, competently get you guys going and then, maybe mentor a younger guy. But so, yeah, I guess as a Packers fan, but, Mariota has some legs in the Packers. If they're one thing, the Packers defense does not know how to guard a mobile quarterback. And so, I mean, just look at any time we've played the Seahawks or even like when Kaepernick was like, at the height of his power and just ran like 300 yards against the Packers. Like we just can't stop offensive, like running mobile quarterbacks. So, maybe Mariota's not the guy and maybe I do want Darnold.
And Darnold has some sneaky athleticism to him.
He got some wheels.
He's definitely not a run for quarterback, that's for sure. So
I think he's very similar to Mitch's mobility, maybe a little slower than Mitch from what I've seen, but I definitely see him kind of in that like area of running athleticism kind of thing. So
Rich, who would you say you would like to see come to the Bears most, and who would you like to see kind of come to the Bears least out of those names?
The most, definitely Deshaun Watson, which we should have already had him to even begin with, which is the most frustrating thing. So, Watson's definitely the guy. Russell Wilson, definitely good. But again, he's aging. I'd rather have pretty much like a younger Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson than, 32-year-old Russell Wilson, even though both guys will be great in Chicago. My least favorite is definitely Marcus Mariota. The Alex Smith one, again, it's all that stuff. Like, it makes sense. It's the thing that just, like, annoys me is, like, it's the same things with, like, Nick Foles. But Alex Smith has, been consistent and has played well consistently throughout his entire time in the NFL. So if we do go Alex Smith route, then we have to keep Allen Robinson. Because if you take Allen Robinson away and we have Alex Smith isn't going to elevate the team anymore. Right. So it's like you have to keep Allen Robinson if you go Alex Smith. If you get Sam Darnold, he could work well with the younger receivers. They could figure their like shit out and kind of like go from there. With Alex Smith, he's not going to like really elevate an offense. You have to have playmakers there, and he'll be able to like move the ball. He'll be able to score for you. He'll be able to do all those things, but you take pieces away from him, he's going to struggle.
Yeah. Think of
Completely agree with that.
Do you think if Alex Smith was on the Bears roster last year, do you think they win more games?
Oh my God, yeah. Oh, we would have won way more games last year if we had Alex Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And like if he was actually healthy and stuff, Alex Smith, oh my God, we probably would not have like played the Saints in the first round.
So yeah, I think Alex Smith, if I had to go with like a bridge quarterback, I wouldn't hate that move. Obviously, it would be nice to see him get one of the bigger names type of thing, but I wouldn't absolutely hate the Alex Smith move, just like I did not like the Nick Foles move. I hated the Nick Foles move. I would be okay with Alex Smith. I would even be okay with like a Teddy Bridgewater, but not, ecstatic over it, I guess. For me, I would almost, I get the younger thing with Watson, but I almost feel like you're going to have more for Watson right now than Wilson. And Wilson, as Cole kind of mentioned, has been more of like a kind of a dagger in the Packers side than Watson has, even though obviously because Watson hasn't played the Packers very much. I would just love to go with Wilson just because the Packers would look at that and go, fuck, now we have to play this guy twice a year.
Heart would drop.
So,
my heart would drop if I saw that. Yeah, because he knows the Packers defense. He knows how to play them.
right.
And with him on the Bears, like with now a very competent defense on his team now, like I could see that would be a team that like I would be very worried about next year, I think.
I would argue if we look outside of cap restraint, if we look outside of the quarterback position, the Bears have a more talented roster than the Seahawks do, and look at what he was able to do with the Seahawks last year. So
100%.
I honestly think if we get a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback and a guy like Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson, and we don't have to give away a bunch of players if we can do it mostly with picks, restructure some contracts to save us some money this year, and we can get a guy like that, I do think that elevates them to a Super Bowl contender fairly quickly. And I don't know if I see that as much with Alex Smith. I think we could easily make the playoffs with Alex Smith. And I think we could possibly make the playoffs with Sam Darnold, depending on a couple of factors. I think the Bears have a much more talented roster than what he had going in New York with the Jets. The defense, I kind of don't want to shit on the defense for the Jets. If anything is okay about that team, it's been their defense. But they've had far from good management, good coaching. I would say even with what the Bears have had happen, which as a Bears fan, we can complain all day, but we're in a much better situation than what he had going on with the Jets. So I think he would be the most intriguing option, but that's one of the more high risk, high reward type situations. While Alex Smith, you really know what you're going to get.
Whatever happened with because I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, you guys were talking about Derek Carr. Did he resign, or is he just not someone you guys want anymore, or what's going on with him?
He's definitely a guy that I'm still interested in, but it seems like every day that's becoming less and less likely. The amount that they're willing to trade, or not even trade, just cut Marcus Mariota. It seems like they are trying to free up the cap space to sign him to a long-term deal. A couple of management guys on their end have come out and said that they're working on extending a contract. So I don't see that happening. I think the names that I listed are more likely, I guess, because they're guys that are be more readily available. Even Russ Wilson, I think at this point, I would be less surprised to see him move than Derek Carr. But no, I would definitely still be interested in getting a guy like Derek Carr as well because of the reasons that we brought up previously.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I was just curious.
Fun fact of Oakland, since we're talking about Derek Carr and stuff, and
why would we be talking about Oakland if we're talking about Derek Carr?
Talking about Las
Vegas?
Sorry. Rich? Sorry. My bad. They're the Nevada Raiders.
No, they're
Las
Las
Vegas
Vegas Raiders.
Raiders.
Rich, you had 3 strikes. You're out.
So
You
no.
didn't-
So
I don't think we
fun.
could hear this point anymore. Rich.
Yeah.
No.
I think
Oh no,
your
I'm
point
totally
is
ripping
not
on
valid.
Gruden. No, Gruden is such a bad GM. They just threw up. Just saw the stat line when the Raiders' reason, John Gruden's reason for not keeping Khalil Mack was that that's too much money to put into like one player to pretty much like have on the team. We're redoing everything. The 3 players that he got in return, none of them are playing for Oakland right now. So not only did we just get Khalil Mack.
Yeah, because
Well,
they don't
Rich,
play in
nobody
Oakland
is
anymore,
playing
Rich.
for
No
Oakland.
one plays for Oakland.
Literally,
Well-
they have 0 players on their roster because
for
they're not
Las,
a team
okay,
anymore.
for Las Vegas, whatever. The Raiders. The Raiders themselves. The team, the Raiders in the NFL. The Raiders.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like the
Wait.
3.
Wait.
Yeah.
John Gruden's the coach of the Raiders? I thought it was Adam Levine.
No. Adam Levine's totally basketball, dude. Not even close.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
That's basketball.
I would love to see Adam Levine just purchase the Raiders like today, and then we
Moving
could
back
just
to
prove.
Oakland so Rich could be right.
Yeah, that would be great. But yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things swirling around right now. I think it's probably likely because Allen Robinson has come out on multiple occasions saying that he did not want to be franchise tagged. Now we tag him, so that's probably not going to make him happy. So I think it's very likely that he goes. So we have to look maybe to the draft, or there's some big names on the market in the wide receiver pool that we can look at. But are they going to be too expensive? A guy like Kenny Galladay or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see any of those guys coming to the Bears, or do you think they're just going to be too expensive, I guess, at this point? And will they be able to step into the shoes for Allen Robinson?
I would say too expensive right now. And if we're going to be spending big bucks in free agency or trying to spend money in free agency, I'd rather see the Bears try to go for one of the tackles that the Chiefs just got rid of.
Sure.
Because that's where we need more help at is the offensive line rather than receiver. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, and I think Eric Fisher has been a good left tackle. I'm actually surprised to see him go. That would be a hell of an upgrade to what we've had on the offensive line. And then a guy like Riley Reif from the Vikings probably underperformed. They were paying him a lot of money in Minnesota. But if we can get him on a kind of a cheaper contract and get rid of Massey and on the other side, Leno, I would be interested in changing both tackles this year. And if we do end up going tackle in free agency, that really opens up going for a wide receiver this year in the draft. And it's a very deep draft for wide receiver this year. So I would not be opposed to just going tackle in free agency and going to the draft for a wide receiver for sure.
Yeah, lots of moves to be made.
Yeah, and time will tell, I guess, at this point. We'll see. Free agency, I believe it's starting next week already, or maybe it's 2 weeks, but it's definitely coming up. So I'm kind of nervous, but also very excited to see kind of where a bunch of teams are going with this salary cap constraint, I guess, this year.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And
A lot of big names on the move, possibly.
Oh, yeah, definitely more cuts coming too. So, with that being said, I think it's about time for that 2-minute drill, the last segment of the day here.
All right. Well, this is an interesting thing because we had questions written for Austin today, and he is not here. So I don't know how you want to handle that, Rich. If we just want to move forward without that this week and do 2-minute drill next week. Unfortunately,
I say I'm okay with that. What else?
Okay.
I'm good with pushing it back and just.
Sorry to disappoint people if you were looking forward to the 2-minute drill, but
still waiting on my beer.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be another couple months or so.
Okay.
And speaking about sending things out, I think our fan of the week, we may be sending a gift basket out for her. so she could expect that. And I would have to check with my shipping department here, but I think they were saying about 3 years for a gift basket, just because it's heavy. So all the food that I prepared in there might not be good when that gets delivered, but it's the thought that counts. So we'll continue
Definitely.
to work with this very poor shipping company.
All right. So that's a wrap for the podcast. So
Yeah.
peace, everyone.
Let's hear from Cole one more time. Cole, final thoughts, final word.
Final word. On anything, I don't know. I'm put on the spot here. Great. I mean, I'm just happy to be back on again. I mean, this is what I look forward to every Thursday. Well, technically Friday, because that's normally when it comes out. So, very happy to be on again. You know, I hope the Bears don't draft a good quarterback. I hope to God it's not Russell Wilson. And if it is, you're gonna have me on suicide watch for the next like 3 or 4 years, because it's just going to be a rough couple of years for me as a Packers fan. But yeah, everything else. I mean, yeah. Thanks for having me
Cole,
on, and again, all the best.
I was very
We
hoping
won't talk for 4 years. We won't talk until Russell Wilson leaves. I will promise you that. You will not hear from me, Adam.
Sure. I was really hoping I would send it over to you for final word, and you just go banana hammock and just hang up and like run away or something. That would have been a great ending.
You know what? Next time, if I'm on again, that will be my final word. I will do that.
Okay, great.
That'll be my sign off.
So until next week, we have been the Next Man Up podcast, and we hope you keep coming back. Later.
Bye, Mom.